AI-Powered RevOps, where the learning never stops. Hosted by Sandy Robinson, she's leveling up your ops. From data to deals, she reveals how AI really pops. Real talk, real playbooks, no fluff, just jaw drop. So plug in, turn it up, let the insights flow. You're tuned to AI-Powered RevOps, now let's start the show.
Welcome back to AI-Powered RevOps. Today, I'm joined by Lindsay Rothlisberger. Lindsay leads GTM strategy, ops, and AI at Zapier, and she's in the trenches turning automation into real revenue impact. If your CRM is messy and your pipeline is noisy, listen closely. Okay, Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And you know, I had to ask you, the words came out of my mouth. Am I saying it right? Zapier
Yes.
or Zapier?
You got it. It's Zapier makes you happier. That's a good way to remember it.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah, because I've heard it both ways, but that's a good way
Yeah,
to remember
totally.
it. I love it. Well, tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I started out my career in marketing. I think like a lot of ops folks, I sort of fell into operations. So entered the working world and became a marketer, did demand gen, events, sort of like full stack, and built out like the first version of lead scoring. Was sort of became the person responsible for campaign execution, and so I sort of found my way into marketing operations because I really like the systems. I really like seeing how things work end to end. So kind of bounced back and forth between demand gen and marketing ops for a couple of years. Then I was one of the first marketing operations hires at Zapier about 6 years ago. And as we really started to expand up market and build out our enterprise motions and grow our sales team, that led to the opportunity to step into a full revenue operations role. I think it's sort of rare to see marketing ops folks step into that role. So it's been a really fun and interesting experience. So my team at Zapier now is across marketing, sales, customer success, and revenue enablement. So that includes all of the systems and technology, process and automation, insights and analytics, deal desk, comp, and all of that. So it's been a really, really great experience to get to sort of like grow alongside Zapier.
Yeah, you're like an OG there for sure, right?
Yeah, it feels like I can't believe it's been 6 years. I've just learned so much and it's such a great product. So it's been really fun to like be the team to also get to dog food
Mhm.
AI automation, which has been really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like one of those roles where you're in RevOps and you actually provide a tool that enables RevOps as well. So it's just one of those really neat things. And it's interesting what you say. I do know a few folks that came from the marketing side in RevOps, but to your point, it's definitely not it's a little bit more rare of a path. I think it's huge though, because that is probably one of the more challenging parts of, if you came up on the sales ops side or even from sales, that is a different muscle, marketing ops. So really understanding that from either the left side of the bow tie or the top of the funnel, however you want to look at it, I think that's definitely a huge advantage.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because I think having the marketing lens does bring a unique perspective to revenue operations, just in how interconnected everything is. Like the message that we go to market with and who we're going after really does have a really large impact on how we sell, and being able to like see and connect all of those pieces across the full funnel has been a really great learning experience.
100%. So I'd like to ask this question of all of my guests. What is one personal interest or fun fact your work friends wouldn't know about you?
So I'm a huge Bravo fan. So the Real Housewives are my best friends. I know them all so well. It's kind of the way I kick back at the end of the day. I also have a young son, so finding the time to watch reality TV is minimal. But when I do, it's like such a luxury to just be able to like live through other people's drama. So that's a fun fact about me.
That's great. Yeah, you have to enjoy that little time when they're sleeping at that age, and you can have a little bit of check out me time.
Totally.
My dirty little secret is Jersey Shore. So I can, yeah, like, I don't know, I'm from Jersey, and for whatever reason, I got hooked on that at some point. And yeah, anyway, but yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
get it. So I can relate. How did you get started with AI, even if not in RevOps or, at Zapier?
Yeah, great question. So, Zapier had a really big internal push and effort around AI adoption, both internally among employees and within our product pretty early on. So, our CEO, Wade, called a code red, and everybody was tasked with figuring out these tools and figuring out how they fit into our work and how they change how we think about what we're doing. So we started off, I started off using ChatGPT pretty heavily for just filling in gaps of knowledge where I might not have as much experience. And as I mentioned, as a leader over revenue operations, where I don't have that deep knowledge about deal desk and how that works, for example, it became pretty crucial in helping me to fill some of those like high level gaps in experience. Um, but then the real unlock for us was building AI into our go-to-market funnel. We started by kind of just throwing ideas at the wall. So we built a ton of stuff. So pretty early on, we used AI to generate call prep for all of our reps. That was one of the first workflows that we initiated. And we were like, wow, this actually cuts down in a lot of time that they were spending prepping for these calls. And the beauty of Zapier as a tool is that you can pull data from a lot of different sources in order to generate some of that content and then serve it up in context for whatever team who needs it. So in our case, that was in our CRM. We also experimented pretty early on with building AI powered coaching bots. So, actually reviewing Gong call transcripts from rep and customer calls to evaluate how our reps were actually delivering on the enablement that we were providing. And then that gave us the idea of like, wow, we can do a lot with all of this unstructured data, like
Right.
all this data in emails, in calls, and we can now like make sense of it at scale. So then we used AI to actually like look at all of our chat communications with our chat sales team on our
Mhm.
website and say like, ooh, like, should we actually be chatting with people about this or should we improve our website so that customers don't have this type of question? So, like, we started doing things and it opened the doors for like all of the possibilities. And to be honest, it felt overwhelming at first. Like, there was so much we could do, but we really started to narrow in on like, okay, like, what is the best? Uh, way to use these new tools and what maybe isn't it well suited for. And so that was really the first step uh, initially that we took.
So were you building it yourself, or were you experimenting with like other tools, like the whole build or buy
Yeah,
conversation?
great question. So a lot of early on, like, there's a lot of AI now embedded into tools. Like
Mhm.
Gong, for example, has great AI tools within it. HubSpot does. All these tools have really innovated quickly. But we on our RevOps team, like, because we have access to a no-code tool like Zapier, we were
Mhm.
able to actually build all of this stuff within our product. So
Nice.
it was really about like taking automations that we sort of had in place, like we have a lead handoff process
Mhm.
and building AI into that. So just adding a step that like uses AI to query data from more sources and generate some output. So early on, it was about like embedding AI into existing workflows via our tools. But it's definitely evolved like beyond that. And I can
Yeah.
share a few examples, but yeah, that was sort of the evolution for us was like embedding it into existing workflows to like make a better and more successful output, essentially.
So How big is your team
Yeah.
that you support? I mean, obviously you're supporting enablement, all the full bow tie in terms of the customer journey. So, yeah, what does your team structure look like?
Yeah, so our RevOps team is, I would say, pretty like it sounds like a big team, but it's actually a
Mhm.
really broad charter, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So we have a couple of folks in marketing ops, just two people running all of our lead management processes and campaign execution. So the ways that they've used AI are like, for example, they use AI to map new customers to our ICP. So, like looking at all of the data about a customer from different sources and classifying and making decisions about how those folks should be segmented. You could use a lot of like workflow logic to do that for sure, but AI makes it a little bit easier.
Right.
Um, so we have our marketing ops folks, and then we have two folks on like infrastructure and tooling, and they're backed by data warehouse engineers and more technical
Okay.
teams, but really figuring out like what data do we need where and how are our platforms integrated. And then we have sales enablement, which right now is actually just a team of one, and he's built all of his enablement with a ton of AI resources. So, all of those coaching bots, like monitoring rep performance, making content. Um, the other folks on the team focused on sales and CS operations, deal desk, and comp. It's a small team across all of those of five folks.
Mhm.
Um, so they a lot of their AI use cases have to do with like sales call prep, automation. So taking like information about our information embedded in our calls and transcripts and emails back and forth to actually auto generate close one loss notes to provide feedback to our product team. So they build a lot of automations tied to like the rep experience and making that whole process more efficient and more
Mhm.
predictable. That's like a general
Yep.
overview of
Yeah.
the team. Yeah, so it's been really fun to be on a team that is like just experimenting and innovating and sharing information. I would say one of the risks early on was that we threw a bunch of these AI workflows at the wall, and like some of them just decayed and didn't get
Right.
used or adopted or weren't the right things. So there were definitely like learnings along the way.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got, definitely a mix of different skill sets on your team, a couple of technical folks, and then you're working with engineering teams and data teams to support. And I think it's so important to point out because, your in revenue operations touches so many different parts of the organization, so there's always going to be, some sort of collaboration, especially when you're talking about engineering AI and integrations, and where's the source of truth for data, and working with product and all the other departments.
100%. Yeah, it is a lot of stakeholders and a lot of coordination. But yeah, it's part of being RevOps, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, for sure. So you've talked a lot about, the speed of AI, on its own is limiting. How do you think about initiatives that you're going to move forward with? And, how do you leverage those metrics and prove the value outside of just efficiency? Like, I think we all know AI is helping us be efficient, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so how do you approach that?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, the way we've tried to orient our focus is like a combination of like where there are revenue, like bottlenecks in the funnel, or where there are breakage points, but also like where there are customer experience issues. So we tend to focus. We honestly we like the customer experience issues highest on our list in terms of our focus. So, for example, one of the or I guess the breakdowns in general that we've found, especially at Zapier, which we have a few different revenue motions, like ranging from highly transactional, where deals close really quickly at maybe a lower price point, as well as like enterprise deals that take months to close.
Mhm.
So For us, like handoffs are some of the most challenging transitions. So, for example, going from marketing to handing off leads to sales, and then from sales to post sale and onboarding, like that, those processes for the customer were not ideal. And so, one of the things that we do on our RevOps team is we sit down from a customer's perspective once a month and we run through a particular experience. So, like, what is it like when we fill out this contact sales form and we meet this criteria? Like, what is that full experience from a customer perspective? And so we focus our AI efforts on that first and foremost. An example that I'll give is with our renewal process. So
Mhm.
it was customers were coming up for renewal and not having like a high level of engagement for them from their CSM, and the CSM really not being armed with like a full understanding of like all the touch points that were happening with that customer throughout the year, especially for like our customers who don't have a dedicated CSM.
Mm.
And so we built an AI powered renewal process. Shout out to Sarah Bonanno on my team who built this, that looks at all of the context of a customer, all of their usage data, and it actually generates the renewal strategy for the CSM and all of the content that they would need for the renewal conversation. Um, and that, like, because it was a customer gap, like that was already going to be beneficial. But then it also like significantly cut down on the amount of time it took, therefore reduced the amount of CSMs that we needed to actually have those conversations so we could redeploy that into other programs, like our really high touch customers, for example, without having to add more resourcing there.
That's huge. So you said a couple of things. Well, first of all, just that not only were you able to redeploy resources, but I would imagine it had impact on, positive impact on churn, right? So you're now
100%.
getting
Yeah.
in front of this. You've got all the data, you have all the signals, everything that you need to really focus on that, GRR number and prevent your
Exactly.
churn and, everything there. In addition to the efficiency and all the other things that come with it. That's a really great place to start. And I think especially obviously you're a more mature company. So, I think a lot of, you do get stuck sometimes with AI in top of the funnel, right? Like, cause there's a lot of really fun, sexy stuff out there
Yeah.
that it's like, ooh, we could do this, we could do this, but that's your bread and butter there, right? That's preventing churn, growth, that organic growth, expansion, all those things. You said a word. It's my trigger word,
No.
and it's handoff. And I love how you said transition. So it is, those are the friction points, right? And I always think of handoff like like you're handing off a baton in a relay race.
Yeah.
and
Like so
and
meaningless.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a different runner with a different style, and it's, yeah, you get to the end goal, but at the end of the day, it's I like focusing in those areas. I think everybody kind of does, and it's no secret that there's always going to be some sort of friction between marketing and sales. And then from sales to, if you need to go to implementation, or implementation to customer success, et cetera. But you did say the word transition too. So in
I
our
repeated
company,
myself.
I've literally changed every name to from handoff to transition on every document and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a joke around our company that like they don't say handoff anymore, especially if I'm in the room.
I love that though. I'm gonna feel that because it really is a really important moment. And to
Hmm.
downplay it with the term of a handoff
Hmm.
really it doesn't do it justice and the importance
Hmm.
of it. So I love that. But I think like the thing I want to like say too that I've realized through these AI implementations is just the importance of context. And it sounds very philosophical, but I did a post on this recently where I think that the power of RevOps in this new world is being able to share context in a way, in in context for whoever needs that particular information. And so these transition points are such a good opportunity to do that, because you're able to take everything we know about a customer or an experience and put that in context for the next person who has a different role or a different perspective. So yeah, it's a little philosophical, but that I feel like that is one of the biggest value adds.
Yeah, you bring up a great point because context that you can get the sentiment out of it, right?
Yeah.
So what we think the pain is or the drivers and things that just, getting the summary from a transcript in the past may not have done, but now you can go deeper and provide that context and the uh, really the insight that like, hey, this customer may churn based on all these emails or the lack of engagement based on these last conversations and the analysis of them. These are the risk factors. So really bringing that context together, I think, is where the real value is, not just the bullet points of here's what happened, right?
Exactly. And I actually have another example, if you don't mind, that just
Yeah,
came to
go for
mind
it.
on this. So I'm starting to think that like RevOps is really, we're the holders of so much context. For example, even in reporting or insights where we have the broader perspective about like, if you look at data or a dashboard and you don't have a lot of that business context, well, like we made a routing decision that impacted this number. Therefore, we're seeing the growth in this way. Or we had this campaign that launched and reps sort of maybe fell flat in delivering what we expected them to around that motion. And that's why that's showing up over here in this metric. So, like, that context that we have is just like so valuable. And so we've been using that internally to like drive, reporting narratives and things like that. But what we're discovering is we can actually use like tools like Cursor. So our RevOps team is all using Cursor today, and we're using MCP, so Databricks MCP, to be able to query data and then provide all of the context in Cursor that's in our brains in Cursor, so that we can actually run these analytics, or anyone can run these analytics reports and be able to have all of that historical context that lives in RevOps brains today. So we're also finding these new ways to like share our context with the rest of the company, and then they're not as reliant on us to be able to like fill in some of those gaps, which is
So
like
tell
giving us a little bit of like a identity crisis. We're like, what? But it's really an interesting time.
So tell me a little bit more about that use case with
Yeah.
Cursor and the Databricks. Like, so how are you providing? You're providing the insights. How are you packaging that up and delivering it to
Yeah,
your
great question.
to your leaders or to the people? Because you make a great point. Like I've been building dashboards for 100 years, and the dashboard sits there. It's like, oh, we got, this many inbound, we got this many MQLs. This is the conversion, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
it's great information, but what does it mean? I need to do a PowerPoint and a presentation and explain how it was built and all of this. So, how are you? It sounds like that's what you're solving for. So, how are you packaging that up and how are you doing that?
Yeah, so this is all late and breaking. Shout out to
Okay.
Taylor McCallum on my team, who leads our analytics and insights and planning function within RevOps. So we have access internally at Zapier to Cursor and other similar tools like Claude or Claude Code. So we have access to these tools internally as employees. And our data team has done an amazing job of centralizing and managing a lot of our data in Databricks. And so using Cursor and Databricks MCP, we can connect those two things together. Cursor does a really great job at utilizing different LLMs depending on the task. So there's great interoperability there. So we're able to essentially interact with the data like we would if we uploaded a bunch of data into ChatGPT.
Right.
And we're able to run queries in Databricks to visualize the data and information. So, what we've done, or what Taylor has done on my team, is she's built Cursor relies on context that you upload and provide to it so that it can refer back to it. And this could be unique context about your business, about how your funnel works. And so Taylor's built a guide essentially based on all of her knowledge about our systems and our processes and our tools and our data. Like for example, she added into the context doc, hey, if somebody asks you to pull lead data, make sure you're double checking with them. Do they mean marketing qualified leads? And here's the definition of a marketing qualified lead so they know when they're asking about this. So she's built that context that way. Other internal employees at Zapier can be able to query this information and ask these questions and get what they need without having to ask us to build them a dashboard, essentially.
That takes that RevOps request dashboard and the incoming requests and
Yeah,
reduces it down significantly, right? Or
yeah,
eliminates
yeah,
it really, self-service. I love
yeah.
it. That's great. I mean, that's such a practical use case for internal use in RevOps specifically. So, thank you so much for sharing. You've talked a lot about workflows, like deterministic workflows versus adaptive agents. When we're thinking about go to market, what's a use case where teams just shouldn't use an agent, even if they can?
Yeah. Great question. So, a lot of our workflows, I would say most of our workflows in RevOps currently are deterministic. So, we have some agents sort of embedded within deterministic workflows, but traditionally, like RevOps, we needed the output to be consistent.
Right.
So in most cases, our workflows are truly automations that are augmented with AI capabilities, in most cases. So that includes like our lead classification, like our segmentation.
Hmm.
We're using AI to look at a lot of different data and make decisions about it, but we need the output to be very consistent.
Right.
So most of our workflows rely on deterministic practices. The agents are more when we have like those reasoning type use cases. Our renewals workflow that I mentioned earlier, it actually is an agent because it's actually saying there's a workflow, but then there's an agent that's deciding, oh, you should approach it like this.
Hmm.
Um, and it's not necessarily a predefined output that we need to be the same every time. So we're giving it a little bit more leeway for interpretation based on the context we provide.
Yeah, for sure. Or like an inbound workflow. Once it gets there, then okay, the agent might determine, hey, I'm going to give this to an AE based on whatever that context is, or I'm going to put it in some sort of some nurture campaign or something like that.
Totally. Yeah, more flexibility there.
So it sounds like you guys, I mean, you're really you're doing a lot. I talked to a lot of folks on varying degrees of the AI adoption curve. And one thing that always comes up is, planning. Planning is, companies like to look at planning as, hey, we're planning for the year. And, AI changes like literally every day. Um, and, obviously you need to hit numbers and you need to adapt. But how do you approach that? Do you have any, things that your team does that you own in terms of the planning?
Yeah, great question. So my team owns annual planning.
Hmm.
We did pretty robust planning at the end of the year last year.
Hmm.
And what that looked like was developing the plans themselves and figuring out how we were going to execute on those plans. So, how do we structure the teams? Who's involved? What does that look like? And then what we do is we build like an operating model throughout the year to be able to like track against those plans. So, we have monthly business reviews, and we recently implemented weekly business reviews. We're sort of getting into the nitty gritty of those plans and looking like by initiative, how are we tracking? The one thing I would say that I've learned through the planning, especially at a high growth tech company, is you have to bake in the way to change the plan. Otherwise, the plan will get completely abandoned very quickly. So during these weekly business reviews, we actually say, are these still the initiatives that we should be most focused on? And if they're not, let's just change them. And we have an
Mm.
easy way to get alignment on that. We have a practice of doing what we call bullpens, which are making decisions really quickly, where we'll just tee up a doc, get the right people in the room. Nope, we should focus on this. This is a priority. Here's what else needs to drop. And then that moves into our operating model. So we really
Hmm.
just tried to find ways to change the plan versus like trying to find ways to like keep the plan intact. Because you're right, like things are changing so quickly right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, this conversation just happened recently with me.
Oh,
We do rocks like every quarter, and we try to, we put them together like the last week or so of the prior quarter, and
okay.
then everybody aligns on them. But, January happened, and then a lot of new priorities came, and pretty much, it all hit my team.
Right.
So those became higher priorities. They were then, at a future point in time, most critical. So I shifted my resources there, meaning, two of my what we call rocks are now, I'm not going to make them, right? They're going to
Right.
push, right? But it's almost like it's not flexible enough because everybody agreed, like, hey, we need to shift this, but it's still going to show, like, well, okay, we're not hitting these goals, but the other ones are just need to be done. So I think it's important the way you guys are approaching it, that it's a fluid process. You're aligning, and we realize that, things may change. The overall plan, the numbers, like, obviously that usually doesn't, but the initiatives, the priorities, the focus area, that might shift. It's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, totally. And I think to your point, like as long as folks understand what those trade-offs actually are. If you don't have the structure in place, then you just get bombarded with everything. Be able to say like, okay, well then these are the things that we have to move out. And that's what's really hard, but like essential for RevOps teams.
What are you doing, or what do you recommend in terms of guardrails to really protect that data quality so you can, keep moving quickly?
Yeah, great question. This is honestly like just a hard one. We try to treat the AI solutions we built like a product where you might launch something and maybe the underlying data is just okay. And like maybe you actually don't have all the inputs that you need. But rather than trying to like focus on the foundation by itself and just say, we need to clean up all of this data foundation and making it so overwhelming, we try to look at the data improvements that we need through the lens of these key use cases or AI products that we're most focused on. So if it's our renewal AI workflow, it's like, well, what foundations do we need to improve over time to make this better? And so almost treating them like these products that we want to fine tune, add features, improve outputs. It makes it feel a little bit more manageable versus trying to boil the ocean.
That's a good way to look at it. Like, they're individual products that you're building, and there's release schedules, and there's going to be updates and hot fixes, and all that stuff is going to come with it. I
Yeah.
like I like your perspective there a lot, because it does. it can seem overwhelming, like, oh, we can't do this because our data, our data isn't right. It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's a big word, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot that's encompassed. So whatever that use case is, that specific data that it's looking at, there's where you want to focus that foundation.
100%.
So you have a big company. We already talked a little bit about cross-functional work streams. We always probably work with the most people across the organization, I would say. So when you think about AI enabled processes, how is that change? How are you approaching that? What challenges are you finding with it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think our partnership with data becomes crucial. Like it's always been an important partnership, but access to the data and the data as an input in so many ways, like data foundations are just so important. So for us, building partnerships with data have been key to our success. I think the other thing that's interesting has been the relationships with marketing and sales is like you have to empower them to self-serve and it is possible for them to self-serve in a lot of new ways. So how do you create ways for them to leverage the tools that you've built with the guardrails and with the enablement to help them be successful? Like it's always been important, but I think
Hmm.
like now with AI, it's a little bit different because everyone wants access to all of the information. And so there's this
And now.
growing yeah, there's this growing internal demand. Um, and really RevOps, oh, like we have the keys to the castle, right? Like we have all the tools and the systems and the processes and the context. So finding ways to disseminate and share that and like bring people along is really important versus locking things down more. I
Hmm.
think it's probably not the right approach, but yeah, I think that
Yeah.
dynamic has changed things a bit.
Yeah, I think it really has. And to your point back around how you've set up leveraging Cursor,
Mhm.
you are enabling the team to get all the data they want. And now you're confident it's pointing to the right things, right?
Right.
So, um, you know, at Quavo, we're still early on the adoption, right? Because we didn't even have a CRM this time last year. So put in Salesforce, and we're working on Clay and a lot of other things, and some workflows and some real foundational stuff. But it is scary when you don't have things pointing to the right places, or if somebody wants to go, they know how to use Salesforce, for example, and they want to go pull their own lead report. It's like, great, well, you can certainly do that because you know how to use Salesforce and build it, but your brain isn't the admin who like
Knows
has
how it
certain
works.
fields and stamps and like what it means. So I think that's where the shift to setting up these internal tools where you can have a reporting query just for sales that they can go in and use,
Yeah.
saves you time, and it also anxiety
Yeah.
because you're like, wait, where did the sales manager get that from? Just because how, like you said, how to build a report, like doesn't mean the stuff in it is the right stuff you're looking at, right? So that's just such a huge, I think, evolution of RevOps and being able to provide that self-service and get out of being the bottleneck or gatekeeper, right? You've built in, as long as you've built in the guardrails, like that's the gatekeeper. And it's like, hey, feel free to build your own stuff because I know it's coming from the right sources. So,
Right. Yeah. But it's like, it just like documentation has always been important, like
mhm,
and enablement. But like even more so because
mhm,
uh to your point, it's like people want to be empowered to do this stuff, but if they don't have the right context or guidance, they won't be
mhm.
successful.
Right. And like, I mean, I know like old school enablement, you make all the documents, no one ever reads them anyway, but now you can just feed
Right.
it
Right.
to whatever, agent you're building or whatever tool you're using, and then now it's
I
that it's
actually love
being
that.
followed.
It's like people were really bad at this, but actually I think AI might be better at this.
Yeah. Well, 'cause you have to, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's just gonna look at in the confines of the rules that you set for it. It's definitely a game changer for RevOps and for enablement. And I love that you've talked about enablement as well in the coaching because it's just so valuable. Are you using, just out of curiosity, any sort of like AI role play or anything like that?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
not yet, but we've been looking at different tools. It's super, super interesting stuff out there around that.
It sounds like you're doing coaching though, right? AI
Yeah,
coaching.
yeah, it's mostly manager-led coaching, and we're using our coaching bots to inform managers, to
Awesome.
surface up what they should be discussing and to show examples and, links to, call recordings they should view to help inform them. Yeah, so that's kinda how it
Nice.
works.
Nice. Yeah, the role play, it's fun once you
Oh,
start getting
cool. Are
into
you
it.
guys using it?
Yeah, we were using GTM Buddy, now we're rolling over to Seismic. When I first started using it, I was like, "Okay, it's been 100 years since I've made a cold call myself." So I built like an SDR bot for an SDR, and it was really fun, when you try it
Oh,
yourself. But
cool.
it's totally genius because salespeople in the history of salespeople don't do role plays. It's so safe for them to do it because you do it on their own. They don't have to submit it until they're comfortable, and I don't know. I find it to be really powerful. I'll
Yeah.
have to hear back from you when you guys go down that road.
Yeah, that's nice. It removes, like, the social pressure.
Yeah, it does, and it's really genius because like when I was playing with it, I was like, "Okay, I don't wanna submit this and sound stupid." So, I literally did it like 5 or 6 times until I felt like, "Oh, that was a successful one," and then I click submit. So, if you think about it, an AE or any rep is going to do that,
Get
when they
practice.
are. Yeah, and then they're naturally getting practice. They would have never, ever practiced a cold call 5
Right.
times before making a cold call. They would have just picked up the phone with the prospect. So, even if they never click submit, it's like it works, right? At the end of the day, you're getting them to practice, So I think
That's awesome.
it's pretty genius. This is just awesome. You're really doing lots of great stuff. I have these rapid fire questions that I've been asking all of my guests, and I basically asked AI what RevOps people are asking about AI right now, what leaders are asking, and made them into rapid fire questions. So I'm asking
Cool.
every guest, and some of them you've kind of answered already. Some of them are softballs, but you ready to do it?
Let's do it.
All right. So, what's the very first place you'd tell a RevOps team to start with AI?
So I was gonna say handoffs, but now I will say transitions. So, like,
Yes.
all of those transition points in the customer experience.
I'm going to forever be in your brain about that. Okay, is RevOps data actually AI ready today, or are most teams just automating garbage?
No, it's probably not AI ready, but just start anyway. I think, like I said, treat it like a product. Maybe garbage is okay to start. Does that scare a lot of RevOps people? Probably, but I think it's okay.
I like it. What's one AI use case in RevOps you've seen actually work in the real world?
Yeah. Oh, I just love our coaching bots. Like, I'll just say it again. I think it's been really cool to see how coaching conversations with managers have improved so significantly because the managers have all of that context at their fingertips that we serve up about how a rep is doing and what they need to sort of like double click into. So that's been really powerful because we've seen just like an increase in rep performance directly off the back of some of that.
Huge, huge for managers. How do you measure real ROI from AI in RevOps?
Yeah, I think it has to go back to, are you converting more revenue? Like, are you reducing churn, converting more revenue because you had a better experience for customers and for internal folks?
Comes back to our name, revenue, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Will AI replace RevOps, or will RevOps leaders who use AI replace those who don't?
I don't know, like, my perspective on this changes every day, like, some days I'm like doomsday, I'm like, "Well, none of us will have a job." And then some days I'm like, "Oh, like, this is just gonna make um, folks better and be able to like provide these like really enriched human experiences with these AI powered tools behind them." So I have no idea. I think the most important thing is just to be open and have a growth mindset about some of this stuff. I think it's really easy to like get scared and want to clench on to the way things worked in the past. But it's actually a really exciting time because we don't know what's going to happen. So I would say just get out there and play with the tools, learn as much as you can, and we'll see.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for indulging me.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to, give us some of your wisdom, or, some sort of actionable item that our audience may be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Zapier fan, obviously. So I recommend logging into Zapier for free. You can sign up for a trial and try building an agent. Just build something like for personal productivity. Like, I have an agent that looks through all my Slack messages and my emails and gives me like a summary at the beginning of the day where I should focus. So just get in there and play with some of the tools. I think that's the best way to learn. And for some of these like aha moments about how it could be applicable in new ways, that's like really how it clicks.
I love it. I'm going to do that myself.
Cool.
So I will get back to you. I love it. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I really appreciate your time today. And we will see you soon. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone, for listening to AI Powered RevOps. Tune in soon.